Welcome to today's webcast. This call is being recorded. And now to begin the program, I'd like to introduce Chris Flack. Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much, everybody in the audience, for joining us for today's webcast, How to Optimize Microsoft Hyper-V Failover Cluster and Double Performance, sponsored by StarWind Software and Five9 Software. I'm Chris Flack with Redmond Magazine, and I'm here to be your host for today's event, so thank you all for joining today's presentation. We greatly appreciate it. Now, just a few quick reminders before we get undergoing with today's presentation and our presenters. Just a few reminders that we will have a Q&A at the end of today's session. We do, however, encourage you to enter your question at any point during today's presentation via the Ask a Question box appearing on the left-hand side of your console. And hopefully, if time permits, we'll get to everybody's questions and get out some answers. Also, today's webcast is being recorded and archived for future viewing and listening purposes, and we'll send you a link to the email you're registered with within 24 to 48 hours after today's presentation. Feel free to share that link with coworkers, colleagues, and friends, anybody who may be interested on today's topic. Also, feel free to download a copy of today's slides via the resources area in the dock of your console down there to follow along with today's webcast if you wanted to as well. So please feel free to do that. Now, quickly joining us for today's webcast, we have two really great presenters. Later on today, you're going to hear from Max Kolomaitsev. He is the StarWind Virtual SAM Product Manager. I've actually done numerous webcasts with Max the past couple months, and he's actually a really great presenter, and I'm sure you're all going to be in for a real treat today later on when you hear from Max. And also joining us for today's webcast is Alex Karavanov. Alex is Five9 Director of Sales Engineering. He's really a well-known in the computer industry. He's got many Microsoft certifications in the industry. He's going to be here today to share a little bit about what Five9 Software has to offer. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to the fellows so they can get started with their presentation and get the agenda going. So guys, why don't you get started?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for introducing us. And indeed, let's cover agenda for today's webcast. So we're going to start with cluster evolution and what actually it brought to virtualized data centers nowadays. Then we'll briefly go through Hyper-V cluster setup to ensure that everyone is on track and knows how to actually do that. Then we're going to cover storage component and the way you can use that to optimally balance your cluster and ensure that high availability is there. Management component is going to speak about monitoring your resources as well as dynamically optimizing the load across Hyper-V cluster that is surely going to boost your performance. Agentless Antivirus part is going to cover the need for protection, meanwhile maintaining the desired performance for your Hyper-V cluster. Of course, we're going to say a few words about implementation scenarios, and as Chris mentioned, we'll run a Q&A session in the very end. Now I want to hand my word over to Max to tell a few words about StarWind Software.
Hey,
Max?
Thank you, Alex. Hello, everyone. Right, so I'm Max Kolomaitsev, Product Manager with StarWind Software, and a little background about our company. We've been around since 2003, but we officially spinned off as a dedicated storage company in 2008. The mothership was Rocket Division Software, quite a big company at that time. We are headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts, got more than 50 people working for us, and we're expanding every month. We provide worldwide support for our products, and we're partners with global industry leaders like Microsoft, VMware, and the major 5 of the hardware market. And a little bit more about Five9. Alex, would you mind telling us a little more about the company?
Thank you, Max. Yeah, as of Five9, we're a leading solutions provider for management and security applications for Windows Server and Hyper-V, and we're also adding Asia-Pac support right now for that. Our products are built exclusively for Hyper-V ecosystem, and therefore that brings us great partnership and relations with Microsoft itself and allows us to use the most recent technologies that are available in Windows Server releases. Hyper-V management for small and medium businesses is what we actually provide to support ecosystem with easier and more efficient management tools, especially for those people who are not ready to invest in SCVMM yet. Agentless and multi-tenant security solutions allow us to provide you with performance that is still very, very optimal and very, very high for securing your infrastructure. And conversion of VMware to Hyper-V virtual machines actually allows us to grow a Hyper-V ecosystem and help you to convert virtual machines from VMware to Hyper-V in case you still have any of VMware servers running in place. We are headquartered in Chicago with offices in New Jersey, Boston, and St. Petersburg. And currently, we have around 50,000 clients worldwide. After our introduction, I think we are good to go to our topic, and we're going to start with clustering evolution that obviously brought us quite a bit of joy. So, Max, do you really remember what a clustering used to look like in old days?
Unfortunately, I do. I still remember that, and I think that's going to be the most contradictory memory of the IT experience, because we started working when clusters were just starting to emerge in commodity offices, and they were becoming mainstream step by step. So first we had these Windows 2003 R2 clusters where there was no real cluster validation. We needed shared storage for everything, like the old dedicated fiber channel shared storage. We needed every application to have its separate cluster. We had to manage everything independently. It was quite a nightmare. At that time, we were just calming ourselves down by saying, okay, we just received this technology from the enterprise market, so we should be grateful at least for that. But when virtualized architectures appeared, we realized that everything can be so much easier compared to what we've seen previously. In just a few years, we have 2 servers or 3 servers for all of our applications. All of our applications are now virtualized. We do not think of upgrading individual servers for every application. We do not think about that maintenance anymore. And we don't even use dedicated storage. We have everything hyper-converged. So I think clustering made a great leap in under 10 years, and that's really great.
Absolutely, and I agree here with Max, right? So actually it made a huge progress over the years, really, last decade especially. And nowadays it's so easy to use that you can actually get high availability for any application running within your virtual machines. And what's even better, you don't have to pay a fortune to do that. That really made the virtualized clusters a very, very convenient and important part of IT infrastructures, and obviously it allows to achieve very high goals while maintaining the costs on a pretty low level. So let's briefly have a look at what Hyper-V offers out of the box. And it's available even if you use a free version of Microsoft Hyper-V Server. It still has that capabilities and allows you to build your high available Hyper-V cluster. So Max, what does free Hyper-V offer out of the box?
Right. So just a little disclaimer, we took the free Hyper-V to show that even the free version has it, and then we'll evolve and add those additional layers of enterprise software licensing and show you what benefits you get afterward. So with just a free Hyper-V, you got the hypervisor itself, you got the command line interface for that hypervisor, and you got the failover clustering option. That's a completely free Windows-based solution. Of course, it doesn't have a GUI. It doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles like the full version, but that's really a good start for any deployment, and that's a really good virtualization start. It still requires shared storage to operate. It requires some management skills to get the thing up and running, but it can be set up within a day, and you can have highly available virtual machines running inside your cluster by the end of the day. That's already a good thing to have with a completely free hypervisor. If we go with experience enhancements like getting the Hyper-V standard license to Windows 2012 R2 standard, getting additional software which would simplify our storage life, and getting additional solutions which would simplify managing this cluster, that would be great. So in our case, StarWind provides the solution which eliminates the need in shared storage and basically converts local storage resources into highly available shared storage pool. And 5.9 gives us the ability to manage that cluster so easier and so more effective. But Alex will tell you more about that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Indeed, with 5.9, you can actually perform very, very easy management locally, even on core Hyper-V servers. If you're using full-featured Windows server with Hyper-V role, of course, you have some management tools in there that make management of your high-available cluster tiny bit easier. But what we aim at 5.9, we aim to make that process super simple for you and allow you to use the most advanced technologies that are available to manage Hyper-V within your infrastructure. That's a great point, and it really saves you a tremendous amount of time on Hyper-V management. As we know what Hyper-V cluster offers out of the box and what we can do with that, let's briefly go through Hyper-V cluster setup steps. So to set up a Hyper-V cluster, you need to make sure that Hyper-V role is enabled on all of your hosts. Of course, if you're using free Microsoft Hyper-V server, this is the only role that obviously is available, and of course is already there. But if you're using Windows servers, you need to enable Hyper-V role on each of those. Then you install the failover clustering feature on each Hyper-V host. Please remember that's super important. So that has to be enabled on each Hyper-V host that is going to be part of the cluster. On the next step, you install the MPIO feature once again for each of the Hyper-V hosts.
Right.
So the next step is going to be storage, right? Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, storage, of course, storage. I like talking about storage. Why not?
Sure.
So step number 4 is that configuring and provisioning our shared storage. In case you have a dedicated SAN, this is the most convenient time to carve out those LANs on the hardware SAN and present them to the Hyper-V host. In case you're running StarWind Virtual SAN, this is the moment where you install the software and turn your local storage into shared storage pool. After that, you go and configure an external virtual network switch for each host so that our virtual machines in the cluster have a gateway outside and can actually work with clients. After that, it's a very important thing to run all the cluster validation tests, because oftentimes these folks show us all the tiny misconfigurations we made earlier on steps 1 through 5. It's a really convenient tool, and we have to appreciate it, because earlier we didn't have it and we had to validate everything by hand or simply use the supported equipment, which was kind of awkward. So right now, this step is mandatory. It's a really good friend if you want to build a really reliable cluster. Step 7, of course, create a new cluster, give it an IP address, make sure you can connect to it. And step 8, go to the storage and move it from the available storage to cluster shared volumes. Now you can provision virtual machines, turn them highly available, and start your virtualization life. And we will start our in-depth cluster discussion with the storage component. So obviously, you may be interested in what makes the discussed storage component so specific and what's the difference and main points of interest with the virtualized storage, the storage you cannot actually see. So the storage with StarWind Virtual SAN effectively occupies 0 units because you don't have a dedicated storage box anymore. We run inside the hypervisor servers. We convert their local storage into shared storage and present it back to the cluster. So effectively, there is no single piece of hardware in your data center running just storage. It's always running something else. It's running storage and compute and storage, or just running backups and storage, you name it. But we're using the hardware effectively, and we're making sure that we sit as close to applications as we can. This results in the second bullet point here, dramatically reduced capital and operating expense. Since you don't have a dedicated piece of hardware anymore, you don't need to manage one more thing. And investing into a dedicated piece of hardware is also not necessary anymore. So we drop the prices down for the tickets into the enterprise availability level. Another interesting thing for the virtualization world is a complete storage fault tolerance with just 2 servers, because a lot of the solutions on the market offer complete storage fault tolerance, but for some reason they need 3 servers for that. We just thought, why do we need 3 servers? We could do that just with 2 servers and make sure that administrators do additional precaution measures like redundant power supplies and redundant UPS units for them to be available even in the event of a complete power outage. So just 2 servers, no 3rd server necessary. Of course, we are talking about virtual storage, so there is no special GUI like you had in the dedicated storage arrays old days. It's a simple Windows application. So you install it, you run a wizard which tells you how to create a highly available storage device for your environment, and within half an hour you're up and running, your storage is provisioned, and you can configure the cluster. So that's really easy. You don't need to train your staff to do that, and they will not tell you that, okay, I need to go to special courses to work with that, so on. No, it's simply an application, so it's easy to use. And another good point is that StarWind can run on any Windows version, including free and core versions or editions. Now, let's get deeper into the hyper-converged. So why did we go hyper-converged, a part of the industry trend? Well, first of all, we're a native Windows application, so once upon a time we decided that why do we need a dedicated server? First, it was in our test lab. We wanted to do more tests done in the same hardware set, and we just decided installing StarWind along with Hyper-V and trying to reroute everything with loopback interfaces and see if it works and if we can test the solution properly. We not only tested the solution properly, we identified that that is a really good use case where we turn just local storage of our servers into highly available storage. And by the way, that was all the way back in 2011, or even earlier as far as I remember, and that was the first prototype of hyper-converged Windows shared storage I've seen with my eyes. Then, why do we go hyper-converged? A part of the simplicity, of course, because we sit closer to the applications and we sit closer to the storage. If we combine that together, we reduce the I/O path. So instead of going from the compute layer through the HBAs and all the way down to the storage box, we now go to the local storage, so we can actually leverage local RAM and flash as cache, which dramatically increases the performance. So we don't have that flash cache being extremely fast but useless behind a slow link.
Max, actually, I have a question on here. What happens to the cache data if a server fails?
If a server fails in this configuration, the cached data is intact, because the idea behind hyperconvergence is not only to leverage that RAM and flash, but also to make it redundant. So should one of the servers on the picture fail, there is a copy of the cached data kept on the partner server. So you need to drop all servers at once to lose the data in any of the cache layers. If you do that, that means you're not building a highly available data center, because HA is what you do, not something you buy.
Got you.
Now,
thanks.
Once we went hyper-converged, we started swinging around new concepts and ideas of how we could improve the performance and get a really VM-centric storage. And we came to the log-structured file system. So the idea behind log-structured file system is to get rid of that IO blender effect. You see that blender on the diagrams. We're still thinking it's a mixer, but our designer says that's a blender. Okay, we trust her. And this is the thing which kills the virtualization performance. When multiple virtual machines write to the same storage array, all the I/O becomes so chaotic and random that spinning disks are just getting really, really slow. So the only way to fight it, well, there are multiple ways to fight it. The easiest way, buy an all-flash array. Flash doesn't care if it's random or if it's sequential. But flash is expensive. Flash tends to wear out quickly, and flash is simply not the answer on its own. There is always a hybrid infrastructure which saves the day, and we decided that we're going with that hybrid infrastructure. So with StarWind, we get all the random writes in server's RAM, sequentialize them, arrange them in big chunks, and write them to the storage sequentially. So we turn any IO blender, any random writes, any size random writes into a sequential workload. Then this, as a side effect, developed our ability to use parity rates like RAID 5, RAID 6, 50, 60 for write-intensive workloads.
Nice. I've actually heard that vendors stop supporting RAID 5 for production workloads. Are you saying that you're doing the opposite? Yes. It's quite surprising because a lot of people on the web, a lot of IT professionals tell don't use RAID 5, don't ever use RAID 5 or any parity rate for production workloads. So the idea is you cannot use that on its own. RAID 5 on its own is weak against any random workload. But if we sequentialize that workload, if we make that stripe size workload, not just 4K sequential, but let's say 128K or 64K sequential, RAID 5 is just fine. And it even helps the log-structured file system by accelerating reads from it, because we already sequentialized all the writes, and we're not looking at the IOPS characteristics of the array, but at the throughput characteristics of it. So use of RAID 5 in combination with log structuring is actually beneficial. And a similar strategy you'll see used by NetApp. NetApp uses RAID 4 DP, which is also a parity array, combined with NetApp Waffle file system. But I digress. The idea behind log structuring is sequentializing the access to the spinning disks. We identified we can use high-capacity arrays for that. And now we started thinking about accelerating it. So this solution does not come on its own. We now offer it
as a complex system with log structuring and a layer of distributed RAM and flash cache on top of it, as well as its coupling with deduplication. So altogether, that combines into a very powerful solution for primary virtual machine storage. And I told about deduplication. I want to talk a little more about it. So the idea is to combine our log structuring with inline I/O deduplication. So StarWind does not use the same storage array twice for writing the data and then dehydrating the data and writing it back in the dehydrated state. Instead, we leverage server's RAM to deduplicate right there before we write to the storage array. Then, once everything is deduplicated, LSFS sequentializes that stream of data and writes it to the storage array. So we're not only writing sequentially, we're actually writing less. And as a side effect of keeping our data in memory, we have the deduplicated data in RAM, and we can actually read that data and get more cache-read data compared to spindle-read data. So we do not affect our underlying storage with reads that much. And
Max, can I use actually Microsoft's deduplication still here?
Yeah, you can combine two technologies together. You can use StarWind's inline deduplication for primary virtual machine data, and then use Microsoft's deduplication for offline data, especially for the arrays where you don't really care about their utilization. So let's say you have an all-flash array and you want to use inline deduplication to preserve the array and also keep some space, more space free. You use inline. You have some stuff which is not used frequently and will not suffer if you double write to the disk. You use Microsoft offline deduplication.
Thank you.
Now, of course, these features do not come alone, and we have added snapshots and tiering to our system. Now, with snapshots, I think everyone's familiar with the technology. There is nothing so special with it, except of snapshots being really easy and really precise in the log structured file system. With the LSFS nature, every particular point in time of the array is a snapshot. So it's really easy to revert your data back to any production state. So you just apply VSS on the client node, and applications can revert to any point in time. That's a really interesting thing to have. And also, StarWind's tiering is not just within one node where we move the data between RAM, flash, and spindles, or RAM, flash, and cheap flash, you name it. It's more about building environments where you have, let's say, all-flash primary storage, and you offload your snapshots all the way down to a dedicated storage node. Let's say you have a third node which has a SATA RAID 5, and this node will be used to store your snapshots. Would you like to go back in time, and for that you keep half of your all-flash array filled up with snapshots? No. You would like those snapshots on slow storage, which is cheap. You'd like your flash to be working for your applications and for I/O, not for your snapshots. So that's the idea behind internode storage tiering. And at the end of the day, all these technologies need a companion to make the protection of your data really 365. And this is asynchronous replication. I'm not sure there is a lot to tell about asynchronous replication because it's a technology available for ages, and the StarWind ecosystem on your primary site, your primary production system, can do replication to off-site locations. And these off-site locations can be in cloud, on-premise. It can be a StarWind virtual machine. It can be a StarWind dedicated server. It can be StarWind running with Hyper-V on the same box. It can even be a VMware virtual machine running StarWind and replicating to a VMware environment. I'm not sure if you want to do that, but just in case. So it's really flexible. It allows you to simplify your disaster recovery scenarios by not using a third party for replication, but replicating offsite using your primary storage vendor. So I think that's the storage component we have. That is our species we use in hyper-converged Hyper-V environments. And I think, Alex, our audience may be interested in what are the new features you offered. I know you recently released some new interesting stuff, and I'm eager to hear about it.
Thank you, Max. I'm definitely going to mention that on the session right now. I'm going to start with a brief description of our management component, and obviously I'm going to cover one of the most popular scenarios, and obviously happens with smaller Hyper-V high available clusters. What you usually use for that is the free Microsoft Hyper-V server. And you know that even if you don't do that yet, that's a Microsoft recommendation, actually best practice for Hyper-V performance and reduced number of patches and updates to run a Windows Server with the Hyper-V role in core mode, the one that lacks any GUI. So if you're using free Microsoft Hyper-V server, of course, this is all you have. I have a question, right? So have you ever tried to manage Hyper-V hosts with pure PowerShell? And you just try to recall how much time did it take you. And by the way, guys, so if you can just paste the amount of time, the approximate one, into questions box, I'll really appreciate that. So if you administer a server remotely, and you set that remote management configured, this is the way actually Microsoft expects you to do that, you're not protected from network failure. In case your network connection goes down for any reason, or your router goes down, obviously you lose your management capabilities for Microsoft Hyper-V server, and you have your business there, right? So virtual machines run applications that are so important for your business. So Microsoft recommends actually to have NIC teaming configured for management interface, and that proves the need for 100% time availability for management. But do you always do that? Do you always team network cards from just one management interface? That's not a very, very often scenario, even though that's so recommended. So having GUI capabilities on your Hyper-V host locally will make you able to make changes to your Hyper-V host no matter what. So that works locally on your Hyper-V host even if it doesn't have any GUI environment. So you can easily turn PowerShell into GUI with finance help. And that actually gives you the optimal management performance. As our main topic today is the way to boost performance of your Hyper-V cluster. Of course, very first thing that you need to do to reach that goal is to ensure that you have a full picture of your current Hyper-V resources usage. So the amount of memory each virtual machine uses, the CPU, and so on and so forth. There are so many parameters for you to monitor in real time that are related to Hyper-V, but of course, as we are speaking about performance today, CPU and memory are the most important parameters that you have to be aware about within your virtual machines. So at the very first stage, you get monitoring, real-time monitoring for your Hyper-V infrastructure. You learn what virtual machines actually using and the way the load is distributed among them. If you can get notifications about certain thresholds in case virtual machine reaches a critical, for example, 90% CPU usage level, or it overuses memory, if you can get that alert, that's truly going to help you to optimize your load within the infrastructure. So that's what we actually built in within 5.9, and we also allow you to monitor all of the Hyper-V important parameters within a single virtual machines view. So you can get parameters like virtual CPU, heartbeat status, uptime, even IP address of a virtual machine, or fully qualified domain name directly from the console. That is indeed very convenient. If you use replication, so for your disaster recovery, and that Hyper-V replication actually allows you to reach a certain level of disaster recovery, then replication monitoring, replication health monitoring becomes a must. So what we have for that here is a replication health column that tells you exactly in real time if your replication health goes beyond normal. And also you can set up replication failure notifications to support disaster recovery scenario, because you don't really want to be caught in a state when you feel falsely protected, but your replication stopped working a week ago. You set it up to achieve some data redundancy, right? To have some disaster recovery scenario in place. Even if it's offsite, you need to learn and know if replication fails as soon as possible. So that's what becomes available to you. As a next step of resources monitoring, you can get to the graphs, right? So you want to know about resources consumption and see that in a graph manner, so you can predict if it's going to grow later on, or if it used to be really high a few minutes ago. We also let you view top resources users. That means that virtual machines that use the most CPU, the most memory, they are listed in a priority order, and you can actually see them very clearly for future actions. Real-time alerts based on warning and critical, of course, they're going to help you. So now you have an instrument to balance your load according to Hyper-V infrastructure performance. And by doing that manually even, you get much, much better performance, because sometimes you may be unaware about virtual machine that is overusing your resources, and therefore either virtual machine is struggling on that Hyper-V host, while another Hyper-V hosts are just sitting relaxed, right, with 15% of CPU load. So when you get that information, you can start acting immediately to get your performance up. And of course, that results already in a great performance boost within your infrastructure. As you do this, you realize that actually optimizing performance is super important. So what we created to make your life even easier is the way to perform optimization in automatic manner. And we call it automatic dynamic optimization. That's available within Finance Manager. That's something that allows you to perform automatic virtual machine migrations according to resources usage within your infrastructure. So even if you're sleeping, right, drinking your coffee, having your lunch, or playing with your children, you don't have to be worried about your Hyper-V infrastructure performance. We are doing that automatically for you. Just relax, get peace of mind, and know that whatever you have within your infrastructure is performing at the highest level, and all of the resources that you have are used efficiently. as of the groups, we have cluster. This is something that we're obviously talking about today, and shared storage and mixed dynamic optimization groups. These groups allow you to actually optimize the load in different scenarios. So we support even scenarios when you don't have a cluster set up. Obviously, that's not very recommended, but in case you really need that and you don't want to do that manually, we can do that for you with dynamic optimization built in. The most recommended, of course, is to set up a high available Hyper-V cluster and enable dynamic optimization in cluster dynamic optimization group mode. Also, you can keep desired virtual machines distribution with simultaneous migration or store on different hosts rules. That's also available within dynamic optimization configuration. Yeah, Max?
Alex, but is it similar to what a CVMM does?
Actually, this is one of the functionalities why people use a CVMM very often. Dynamic optimization is available within SCVMM and now is available within Finance Manager. Right, it allows you to distribute the load between your Hyper-V hosts according to the performance parameters of hosts and virtual machines, and also allows you to apply rules to virtual machines migrations, so you don't have dynamic optimization move your DC virtual machines, for example, on a one host. You always want to keep them separate, and that's why you use store on different host rule. Sometimes you may have virtual machines that have to sit together on one host, and then you use simultaneous migration rule. So by using automatic dynamic optimization, yeah, you get optimal level of capacity for each of your Hyper-V hosts. And that really allows you to boost performance, and this fact allows you to use resources very, very efficiently. As a next step, as I promised, we're going to discuss the Agentless Antivirus, and this is the one that is so important to have within your Hyper-V infrastructure. The reason for that, your virtual machines are still Windows OS operating systems, right? And these are the ones that require protection. Of course, you may be running some Linux, Ubuntu, and so on, but Windows OS is still a majority in virtual machines in absolute values, and therefore you have to ensure that these virtual machines are protected with antivirus. And I know that some of you may have installed legacy antivirus solutions within virtual machines and got upset with that performance, just because those solutions that were built for physical world, and we call them legacy solutions, they were built to work on physical infrastructures, right? We used to have one server application running per one physical server, and last year's the virtual machine, physical server CPU and memory grew tremendously, so antivirus within that server was absolutely unnoticeable. You know, we were using 3, 5, no, probably 7% of your server capabilities before. Now you use them in a very close to 90% because you have your virtual machines running, so that's optimal, very, very efficient setup, and you're able to leverage all of your host resources. So when you start to use legacy antivirus in that case, that really can kill your performance. So this is where people, say, okay, we just go and install antivirus, but never do that. You still have to have antivirus in place. And the solution about that is to use agentless antivirus that was specifically engineered and built for Hyper-V, and that is aware about virtualization nature of the environment. So agentless antivirus actually gets direct access to VHD and VHDX files, and it allows you to scan them directly from the host level. That is a super efficient approach that gets you in agentless mode. Incremental scan technology based on change block tracking is up to 70 times faster than common antivirus scan.
70 times. Alex, are you serious?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The reason is change block tracking brings you changes for being scanned, and this is a very, very precise measure and functionality to do that. So you exactly know what got changed, and you know that not just on a file level, but on a block level. So whenever antivirus scan starts, you don't have to do overall scanning anymore. You just scan those changes that were detected by change block tracking driver. And that obviously results in reducing the time needed for full system antivirus scan to 7 minutes, and sometimes even crazy fast, 25 seconds. That's also not a dream number. That is indeed available within Five9 Agentless Antivirus. Also, it brings you an ability to scan virtual machines in off state, allows you to absolutely avoid antivirus storms, and therefore keep more virtual machines on your host, because you don't have to plan that anymore. That by itself gives you at least 30% extra virtual machines on per host. And it also allows you to boost virtual machines performance, because you don't really need full system scans happening inside virtual machines anymore. This is happening from the host level, and virtual machines don't even feel that they're being scanned. Just a few words about the change block tracking here. This graph actually perfectly shows up what exactly it does, and this is also Max addresses your question. So whenever you use a legacy antivirus and you use common full system antivirus scan, you have to scan all the blocks over and over and over and over again. So you can see that on the graph. So all of these are equal, right? So you have to spend all of that time for full system antivirus scans. When you use change block tracking, you just do full initial antivirus scan once, and every single subsequent scan actually becomes incremental. So you change only blocks, and you can clearly see that there are just a few of them to be scanned compared to full system overall scanning. So all of this management capabilities and optimization capabilities are available within File Manager for Hyper-V with antivirus, and it includes the optimization, monitoring, virtual machines real-time monitoring, and management, as well as cluster management functionality. So this is where you also get agentless antivirus, and you can use that freely for your environment. So File Manager with antivirus.
Alex, on that picture, I also see you have some sysprep and templates. That's, well, do you usually use templates here?
Right. Actually, this is a very, very efficient approach also available within File Manager. It allows you to prepare virtual machines directly from the program interface via sysprep tool, and reuse these images and templates further on to create new virtual service within your infrastructure. That allows you to grow your environment in a very fast pace, and also is very, very efficient, of course. If you want to keep a library of templates and reuse them later on, that really results in great time savings when you create new infrastructure. So it looks like we just covered the ways you can optimize the load, and let's just cover the real-life implementation scenarios.
Gladly. So, Alex, with what we've described here, I came to a conclusion that this approach we make in storage and management really simplifies the life of IT administrator. I would say up to the point where he doesn't need to be present at the location to manage that environment, and that environment is even that self-sufficient and reliable that it doesn't require a dedicated IT guy to manage it. So I thought it's going to be a really interesting thing for robo-locations. All your branch offices, remote offices, all your retail stores, all those places are really a place for that architecture. You still need high availability on all the branch offices and especially in retail stores. That's the place where your business meets the customers, and that's where they are not going to wait if your equipment isn't working or you need to replace something. That's really a place where customers are demanding the highest quality of service. Otherwise, they will write a bad review or stuff like that. So definitely the environment here, which is simple, reliable, and easy to use, is a really good, I would say, all the way up to ultimate answer for small places like RoboStar. And it provides some serious savings, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Let's just calculate it.
Let's go to the slide about that, and here we go. We can clearly see what actually is available when you perform this kind of savings here. So initially, you need your multiple servers, of course, OS licensing for servers and for extra servers, that's important, and for management stations, and physical SAN to create the environment. When you add StarWind and 5.9, you actually reduce the number of servers required to just 2 physical servers. Therefore, you save on OS licensing for extra servers, and if you have Linux virtual machines, for example, you don't really need OS licensing at all anymore. You don't need a license for managing that as well, because you can do that locally via File Manager. Also, you avoid the need for physical SAN. That is worth at least $7,000 savings. So if you just have a brief calculation on 10 robo locations, with just a physical SAN in mind, we save at least $70,000 on that infrastructure.
Wow. Yeah, that's 70,000 for 10 locations. If we do that for 100 locations, that's going to be 0.7 million. Well, that's a lot. That's really a lot. Even if we take into account that we're running a full-blown operating system license, let's say it's going to be not 7,000 savings per location, but I would say even 5,000. Okay, not 0.7 million, $500,000 savings.
Absolutely. This is still crazy. And yeah, absolutely. I think now we have a full picture, and we have covered the ways to boost performance and actually to implement that in real life for your offices. So now let's go to questions and answers section. We still have a few minutes remaining to cover that. Please feel free to put your questions in the questions box here.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Great presentation, and thank you so much for taking your time to give your presentations today. Much appreciated. And as you guys noted, we do have a couple questions in the Q&A area, so I will read the questions as we can here. We've got a couple minutes left in the presentation, so thank you all for hanging in there for an hour today. Much appreciated. Okay, let's see here. So the first question that I see here is Eric was asking, is the antivirus only based on the scanning of the disk, or is the network also included for incoming files?
So for File Manager with antivirus, you have the disk scanning, and there is also optional extra protection that you can push inside a virtual machine. That's not a must, but you can use that for real-time only tasks. This is connected to File Manager with Antivirus product. Our other product line is called File & Cloud Security, and with the next point release, it's going to include malware detection on a virtual switch level. That obviously means that you'll be able to detect malicious software while it travels to a virtual machine or network level. So at this stage, this product, disk level, inside a virtual machine level, Cloud Security is going to support the network part as well.
Got a question here from Greg. He's asking, can the virtual SAN work between different OSs, i.e. Windows Server 2008 version 2 and Server 2012, both running Hyper-V?
Okay, I guess that's one for me. Technically, StarWind can do that, but then there is an interoperability issue between the old Hyper-V and the new Hyper-V. So the best practice is to run everything on the same operating system version with the latest updates installed. But if you're just replicating storage, that shouldn't be an issue.
Got a question here. This comes from Landon. He says, regarding the last slide, he says, why are there less operating systems needed?
Let me probably answer that question. So we also count in file servers that you may potentially want to use for infrastructure. And also, if you're talking about free Hyper-V server as a core, right, you don't really need more operating systems for management. So for remote management of your Hyper-V infrastructure, because you can do that locally on Hyper-V host. Of course, it doesn't reduce the need for licensing of virtual machines themselves sitting on your Hyper-V host. But this state we are talking about physical servers themselves and virtual machines and stations that are dedicated for management.
Question here, this came from Sean in the audience. He's asking, when replacing Hyper-V, does the copy server need to have the same RAM?
I would assume that that's question also directed to me. I know, Max, you can probably comment on the storage perspective as well. So the replication is built the way that you can obviously use any servers to replicate the load between them. So there is no need for that. But if you expect to have the same performance on the replica side after failover happens, then obviously you have to have the same amount of RAM. But if you expect to have just one extra virtual machine failover, that's absolutely fine. It's not a requirement.
Question here, how often does the 5.9 virus sync with 5.9 server to update virus definitions?
We actually use Viper antivirus built in within Find and Manage of Hyper-V, and it's included within the product. Find and Cloud Security also allows you to select Kaspersky antivirus for that solution. As of the synchronization time, you actually set it up yourself, and that can be as often as every hour, every 30 minutes, whatever you find to be working best for you. By default, it's 120 minutes.
And one last question before we close out the presentation today. Somebody was curious, how much is 5.9 software, and where could I find more information on it?
So you can find more information on www.59.com. Also, you can find the Contact Us slide right now on the screen. Please give us a call and just email us. Or visit our website. That it has all the pricing available for you to see there. It starts at $249 US per Hyper-V host. So that's very, very reasonable, and it includes antivirus licensing as well.
All right, guys. Well, Alex and Max, thank you so much for your presentations today and taking time out of your schedule to join us. We really appreciate you taking time. Thank you to everybody in the audience who joined us for today's webcast, How to Optimize Microsoft Hyper-V Failover Cluster and Double Performance, sponsored by StarWind Software and 5.9 Software. Thank you all for attending today's webcast. We really appreciate you taking your time, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon, everybody. Take care, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.